Hey everybody, what's up? Startup Survival here, and this vid is going to be comparing two small to medium-sized EDC knives that are extremely popular. Of course, everybody knows the Spyderco Delica and the Cold Steel Medium Voyager. This is going to be a continuation from an earlier video I made about the large knives comparison between Benchmade, which is missing here, Cold Steel, and Spyderco. I really wanted to wait until I got the mini grip to make this video, but I honestly just can't justify the price. For $100, that's not great value in my opinion. But anyways, let's get on with the comparison with the knives that we do have. So everybody knows what a good EDC knife is. It's light, it doesn't have a super long blade, it's easy to carry. Having a good blade steel, of course, is important. And I think these knives are extremely competitive, and they're both excellent. So let's just compare them on a number of different talking points and see which knife comes out ahead at the end of the day. So first topic I'd like to talk about is the blade steel. I think that's important in any knife that you have. And of course the blade steels here are VG10 for the Delica and AUS-8 for the Voyager. I would say the edge goes to VG10, no pun intended, because it does have a bit of a longer edge retention. I think it's a bit more rust resistant as well. Both blade steels are made in Japan. AUS-8 I think is a very good medium quality steel. They both sharpen extremely well, but VG10 will hold the edge just a little longer. It's really easy to get them both super sharp as well. So they are both good blade steels, but VG10 adds a little bit of cost, so you will see at the end of the day that the Delica is a more expensive knife, and the blade steel plays a big part of that. What about the blade shape? You know, on the Delica you've got the leaf blade. They're both FFG, by the way. The Voyager has a clip point, and I have to say if I had to choose between one of these blade shapes, I would go with the leaf because it's just a bit more neutral. But I like the clip as well. It took me a little bit of time to warm up to that, and the first knife I got was the large Voyager, and I actually really like that blade shape now. I think it's pretty cool. It slices well, and it's got a great tip on it. Of course I'm showing you the large Voyager, but the tip on the medium is extremely similar. So next let's talk about the blade length. They are both about 3-inch blades overall. The Delica is a little bit shorter. It's 2.9 inches versus a flat 3 for the Voyager, but I think that's pretty much an ideal size for doing EDC stuff. You know, they both have a little bit of belly on them, plain edge obviously, good tips, and they slice extremely well. I like both blade shapes, but if I had to give an edge to one, I think I would choose the Delica. What about the weight? The Delica wins again just by a little bit, 2.3 ounces versus 3.1 for the Voyager. Obviously the Delica is a little bit easier to carry just because of that reduction in weight. Super strong. They both have steel liners, except this one has aluminum liners, I believe. Anyways, I think that's pretty much a perfect blade length, perfect size for EDC. Let's move on to the handle. The handle of the Delica I think has just an extra little cool factor because of the different colors you can have. Here is a brown color, just so you can sort of see. I'll bring in the blue Endura here. I think it's really cool how Spyderco does that. It just personalizes the knife a little more, gives the user some choice. Most knives are black handle, and honestly black handles get a little boring after a while, so I think it is really cool to have that extra color. In terms of pure functionality, I think they're both great handles. What I would say about the Delica handle, and this is jumping ahead to ergonomics, it's just a little more neutral in the hand, and I find it's not as obnoxious, I would say, as the Voyager handle, which I think is also good ergonomically. They both have a lot of traction on them. You know, the Delica has jimping on top, whereas the Voyager does not. It has this sort of plastic jimping. But what I don't like as much about the Voyager handle is the fact that it forces your hand into this sort of indentation here. It's very aggressive with that, I don't know if you call it a choil or a guard or whatever, but I find that my hand doesn't fit very well into that sort of recessed area there. I have to kind of choke back on the blade a little bit, and at the end of the day I can never quite find that perfect position that I can with the Delica, because it is neutral on the bottom. You can see it's not as aggressive in telling your hand where to go, so you have more options. And I find actually most Spyderco knives feel like they were made for your hand. That's sort of the feedback I've read about online, and I think that's true. So in terms of ergonomics, I think I have to give it to the Delica. And that sort of slimmer package, you know, I'll see if I can tilt them up here so you can see. But the Voyager is just a little chunkier, so it's a little harder to carry. It is more hand-filling, that is absolutely true. But I think I like the Delica just a little more in terms of ergonomics, especially with that jimping on top. That's awesome. So what about the clip? I think, again, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to give it to the Delica. I think you're already realizing which knife I'm going to choose at the end. I am going to choose the Delica, but I think the Voyager is still a great knife. But it's just these little things. I like the shape of the clip better. It's more pliable on the Delica, so it's easier to get in and out of your pocket. It's better to carry. They both carry well, I would say, but the thinness of the Delica and the clip is better. You can position it up or down, both sides. And I'll show you on the other side here, they have this smooth section here where it has the Delica Spyderco logo or whatever. And that's what goes underneath the clip. So when you slide it in and out of your pocket, it doesn't grab as much. It's not using this aggressive texturing to sort of inhibit you taking the knife in and out of your pocket. Whereas cold steel knives are rough underneath. They don't have a smooth area there underneath the clip. So pulling it in and out of the pocket is a challenge. And actually every single cold steel I've ever had, I had to modify it out of the box to sort of account for that roughness underneath the clip. I think that just little things like that are why Spyderco makes some of the best design knives in the industry. Still, that's not a horrible clip. I've seen really bad clips out there before. Kershaw makes horrible clips in general, and I've sold every Kershaw knife I've ever had, not specifically because of the clip. So it's not a deal breaker, but it's not a good clip overall, I would say. Another important thing to talk about would be the lock. And this is really one of the areas where the Voyager perhaps will surpass the Delica depending on what your values are. The back lock I think is great. I can operate it one-handed fairly easily, open and close, no problems. It's a good knife, it's strong. I think people in general prefer this to a liner lock because it is a bit stronger. But as you will see, the tang of the blade meets the lock directly. So if you hammer on this knife, baton it or whatever, it will develop play, vertical play, and that lock will not meet up perfectly anymore. So it's not a great lock in the sense that you can punish it a lot. Whereas the triad lock, there is that stop pin in there. You know, you got the blade, the tang, or the blade, the lock, and the stop pin. Those are the three pillars of the triad lock. And you can baton this knife. You can treat it like a fixed blade in the short term, and it should not fail you. I have batoned the large Voyager before, and I think I batoned the American Lawman as well. Neither of them failed. They had to have the pivot tightened up afterwards, but it really is a remarkable lock in the sense that it approximates the characteristics of a fixed blade. And isn't that cool? What I would say though about a knife this small, an EDC blade, are you planning to baton it or, you know, abuse it to the point where that difference in strength, which there is for sure, will actually make any difference? And I say no. I say the back lock, the liner lock, they're both fine for EDC knives. Triad lock is superior in strength, that's absolutely true, but I also find it more difficult to manipulate. That it requires a bit more force from your thumb to get it to disengage. It's just not as comfortable to open and close extensively. You know, the more times you do it, the less comfortable you're going to be. But I mean, in everyday use, if you're just opening and closing it every few minutes or a couple times a day, it doesn't really matter. But this lock is more comfortable to use, let's put it that way. What about deployment? I think this is important to talk about because they are different methods, I would say. The spider hole is by far my most favorite way to open a knife. I like the fact that in terms of design, it is a less is more kind of thing. Like they've actually removed something to create a feature. I think that's so cool. And again, going back to design, why I love Spyderco knives so much, just little things like that smoothing underneath the clip, putting the clip on all four corners, deployment hole, I think really, really cool. Jimping, you know, there's lots of nice features, but I love that spider hole. I think it's a great feature. I'm kind of pissed at Benchmade, honestly, for copying that. I guess Spyderco can't trademark it or whatever, but that just goes to show you how great it is. Thumb stud is also a decent way to open a knife, and this knife is pretty fast, honestly. They're both fast. What I would say though, for beginners, I find people don't seem to be as fast with thumb studs as they are with other things. It took me a while to learn thumb studs and be able to open them quickly. It's not bad, but like I said, every once in a while you'll get like a misfire. I very rarely misfire on a spider hole, so that is my preferred way to open, but they're both fast knives for what they are. Country and manufacturer. I honestly don't think it matters, and I mean that's one of the reasons why I left it to last, but Taiwan is the Voyager's country where it gets made. The blade steel Aus 8 is Japanese, so it's one of these, you know, globalization things, I suppose. Both of them are. But, you know, Japan for the Delica. I think Japan has a reputation of producing really high quality manufactured goods, like automobiles, electronics, knives apparently. So Japan people mostly would prefer things to be made there over Taiwan, let's say. But I don't think Taiwan is necessarily a bad country to manufacture. The most important thing is fit and finish and quality, and knives like the Sage 2 are evidence that Taiwan makes excellent products. The tolerances, the fit and finish, the materials, the quality, everything is really excellent in this knife, as it is in the Voyager, you know, for its price point, I suppose. But Taiwan makes good knives. You can't say that they don't, and I mean the Sage 2 is evidence of that. The Ontario Rat 1, here's another knife made in Taiwan, and I think everybody would agree this is a good knife. So Taiwan makes good knives. Not an issue in terms of the country of manufacture. I would put them on par, and leading into my very last sort of discussion point, pricing. You know, the country of manufacture does make a difference. If you go US, you're going to pay more. If you go Japan, maybe a little less. Taiwan, a little bit less still. So depending on what your value system is, country, you know, being in a cheaper country could be a good thing. So last thing is pricing and value, I suppose. I think they're both really high value knives. The MSRP, let's start there, 69 bucks on the Voyager, $109 on the Delica. So there's a difference right off the bat. Usually you're going to pay a little bit less than MSRP. I paid 50 bucks for the Voyager, 75 bucks for the Delica. Actually, this one was a little cheaper when I bought it. I think it was like $68 or something at the time. But it's gone up in price. The Voyager has been more stable in terms of pricing. Some people can pick this knife up for like 30-something dollars. I wish I was that lucky. But for 50 bucks, I'd say it's a little expensive, but it's worth it. It's a good knife. It'll last for a long time. The Delica, $75. It's starting to get up there. It's starting to reach that point where it's, you know, less of an affordable knife. You know, the Endura, same thing, $75, $80, something like that, plus tax. That's getting a little expensive, honestly, for an FRN knife. But here's where the price difference comes in. Country of manufacture, obviously, Japan, the cost of labor there is higher. That VG10 blade steel is a little better than Aus 8. I mean, a lot of people would consider this to be a higher end steel, and by all accounts it is. So that accounts for a little bit of the price difference. Also with the Delica, you get that really cool choice in handle material. Love it. I love all those colors. I just want to collect all of them, but you know, as I said, 75 bucks a pop, it's difficult to do that. Anyways, I think they're both great knives. It just depends. Are you looking for high value, bomb-proof design? You don't care as much about cool factor or whatever? Go for the Voyager. You're not going to be disappointed by this knife. It's really excellent, I think. If you want something a little bit more special, you really care about that extra design, the colors, the better blade steel, go for the Delica. But at the end of the day, they both serve similar roles. EDC, great sort of medium to high quality knives. Thanks a lot for watching.